Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava and this is Speedplay Touggourt number 23. We left off still essentially in a period of internal conflicts. Our armies are marching across Southeast Asia in an attempt to reconquer our territories from these rebels. We have to worry about Iraqi separatists, so we're going to raise mercenaries to just prevent them from actually declaring independence. We mess around with our trade a little bit just to assure that we will get more income than we have been previously, as we are having a very serious issue with getting enough money to run the state. Ultimately, we aren't doing too poorly against these rebels. We are taking back these large swaths of provinces under rebel control, so that is fantastic news. Obviously, the fact that large swaths of our country are under rebel control isn't very great. However, it's not an emergency anymore, it's just something that we're going to have to actively deal with. As we progress throughout this, though, we will be able to retake all these areas of our country. We've now more or less got a system where we have large armies in every distinct region of our country, which is fantastic, as it means that we always have forces ready to suppress our own people whenever they want anything that our government's not willing to give them. That doesn't sound like we're really running the most ideal state, however, it's working out fairly well, and we are finally able to core some of the provinces we've taken in our previous wars, and we're holding together fairly well. We do have to send men all the way up into Siberia, which is a bit of a problem. However, since we have so many boats, it's not too much of a concern. We're also at the top of our diplomatic power, so we go ahead and culture convert Cairo. We are still taking very large loans. All that really needs to happen is we need to get a couple of events for our trade companies doing well, and we'll be able to pay our loans back off, so I'm not too worried about those. Meanwhile, most of the rebel areas have been brought back under government control, Kamchatka being the obvious exclusion to this. And there is a bit of a problem in East Africa, however, we do have enough forces to take care of this all. And you'll notice the response is happening much quicker. We're not even losing sieges a good portion of the time, which is practically unheard of. East Africa, once again, being the exception to this rule. Overall, though, we have basically brought ourselves back to a point where we are in control of the state. So that old dynasty, long dead, we are now a republic. However, we still should take advantage of the weakness of the Ottomans, now that we have gone ahead and taken care of our own weaknesses. So we'll go ahead and declare war on the Ottomans. We very much so need to take Constantinople. Ideally, we'll also take all of their coastline. I don't think it's realistic that we'll be able to fully annex them by the end of the game. However, I want to leave them a rump state incapable of actually affecting us in any meaningful way. We do still have a series of revolts. Luckily, our armies are all in position. The Ottomans have a rather strong force near us, and in fact, we may not be guaranteed to win any engagement. We do have just an overwhelming superiority in numbers overall, though. And that's mainly because we've had to build so many troops to fight off our own people, which is having some tangential benefits. Now, we did trap 52,000 Ottoman soldiers. We almost let them out on accident, but managed to reinforce our navy quickly enough to keep them bogged down, which means essentially at least a third of the Ottoman armies will be unable to help in this war. Unfortunately, that's not going to save these 37,000 men. We attempt to bring all of our forces over to reinforce as quickly as possible, and it almost looks like it would work. However, they get further reinforcements, bringing their army up to around 120,000. We lose the battle, and it's simply a matter of us getting enough forces from throughout the empire back over so that we can win any subsequent engagement. We almost certainly have an overwhelming manpower advantage, so that loss wasn't actually a very terrible loss in the long run. A large stack of British soldiers walks by, but it's not anything to be concerned about. We also have a few more revolts, an election where we elect a new leader entirely, and ultimately we're in a pretty alright spot other than the marauding Ottoman army. which has just made itself a problem. We bring 120,000 men over to fight it, as well as the remaining forces throughout the Ottoman lands. We do win the battle. We then immediately assault in a subsequent engagement, which we also win. And now we begin to split our armies up into southern Anatolia. We do still have large groups of men just roving around defeating rebels. That's not going to change. However, if the situation becomes too drastic, we can always pull away from the rebels to actually fight the Ottoman armies. And realistically, as soon as we fully defeat the Ottoman army, we will be able to pull our forces out of the Ottomans, other than sieging forces, to go fight off our rebels. We really just need to be doing one thing or the other, not both. We did win the last engagement, which is great news, and we can hopefully go ahead and just destroy this Ottoman army and make it no longer be a problem. Our client state rushes into the battle, we follow up to support them, and we win. We're also getting our trade companies back in order, which means we're getting a steady revenue stream. So hopefully we'll be out of this terrible debt in just a moment. We chase down the Ottoman army. We manage to get there before they do, making it so that they attack us. We win the battle out loud. Their army splits apart, but we're sieging most of their provinces now, so wherever they end up, we'll almost certainly be controlling the province. Ironically, they end up in one of our provinces, which they're occupying. Luckily, our client state is right there. They attack, we engage, and they have been defeated. We also get a free stability at the cost of 10 Republican tradition. We very quickly increase our stability to 0. That brings us all the way up to +1, which means we can hopefully get out of our internal conflicts at the end of this war. It was a very momentous month or so just then, and ultimately all we have to do now is siege out these Ottoman islands. We're going to just leave that 52,000 man stack where it is under its 3-star general, because that is a bit too much of a problem to actually want to go ahead and deal with. And then we'll just worry about getting out of our internal conflicts, and hopefully we will no longer have to deal with all these revolts all the time. Unfortunately, it appears as though we do have a province under rebel control, which I have quite a bit of difficulty finding before I finally find out how to see where exactly it indicates the rebel-controlled province. I could have sworn that there was a different indicator, and I actually spent a depressingly large amount of time having no idea what's being sieged. It turns out one of our islands in Southeast Asia, a very tiny one, is still under rebel control. So we're going to just send one of our rebel-crushing stacks over, and just because I really want to get out of this internal conflicts very quickly, we go ahead and just assault. We also have quite a bit of manpower, so it doesn't matter too much. We gain an additional stability as we leave our internal conflicts, and now we can pull all of our forces out of the Ottoman Empire, other than those few islands we still need to take over, make peace, and then finally and triumphantly welcome a new age and era of stability inside the Constitutional Republic of Touggourt. It has been a hectic and very tumultuous series of years as we've battled mainly our own people and to quite an extent the Ottomans. Luckily, even now that we're at +2 stability, we're seeing a drastic slowdown in revolts. The Ottomans are just being very slowly sieged into irrelevancy. I don't imagine we'll be able to take very much from them before we get up to 100% overextension. Luckily, we are able to just go ahead and declare a quick war on Crimea without calling in anybody else. I really didn't want to have to worry about their allies or anything. We can just feed all their provinces to Kiev, and we'll be in a great spot. Meanwhile, the Holy Roman Empire gets another reform, which means we can very realistically expect to see the Holy Roman Empire as a state in the late game. We go ahead and get all these lands we needed from the Ottomans. Unfortunately, that brings us to 104% overextension, as I just did a little bit poor math. So when we thought we were about to have a new era of amazing stability, it looks as though we may actually have to deal with a slew of revolts once again. Luckily, our armies are all prepared and distributed for fighting off our own people, so this really shouldn't be too much of a problem. And realistically, once we manage to peace out with Crimea, we may be able to just lower this so that we don't have 100% or more overextension. We'll probably just be able to sell a province, hopefully to a client state so we don't actually lose it. It's a bit of a setback and not exactly a great one. Luckily, it's a setback that we're really prepared for at this point. It's been at least a decade of internal conflicts. We can handle a few more years as we core these provinces. And ultimately, it was probably for the best this way. I wanted to get as much as possible out of the Ottomans, and if it means going a little overextended, that's not such a heavy price to pay. Now, we have essentially won the war with Crimea just right out the gate. The rebel problem has picked up quite a bit. Luckily, rebel sentiment won't last too very long, and we'll get -20 to revolt risk from actually beating the rebellions. So it may be better for us in the long run. We do go ahead and get quite a bit of land for Kiev, as well as finish our control of the Crimean Peninsula. There are a slew of more revolts, and they are actually stronger than they would have been otherwise, due to the fact that we are overextended. Luckily, we do have overlapping groups of armies, which are going to be able to rather quickly topple the rebellions. Is it ideal? Not at all. But it's not something that's going to destroy us. And we can probably take this moment to look towards the future for the first time since the coup. And that's something that shows immediately how well we're doing. The most likely thing we'll have to do is we'll probably go ahead and annex the Armenian state we just released, as well as move a little bit further into India. We're almost certainly going to release client states as we move into India, as we have had a very serious issue with getting enough admin power. Our armies aren't really something that we're going to need to worry about, as we have armies essentially everywhere in the world. So hopefully we'll be able to pull everything together and fight a series of wars which won't be anywhere near as difficult as our war on the Ottoman Empire. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We're nearly at the end, but we have so much farther to go.